Do you feel like you've missed the boat on Ethereum after these 1000+% gains over the past couple of years? Well, I'm still super bullish on Ethereum over the next 5 to 10 years. And in this video, I'm gonna break down the full bull case for ETH. Ethereum is likely just starting its rapid growth phase and seems to be on track to disrupt a number of industries, including banking, finance, consumer credit, internet companies, gaming companies, and on and on and on. So let's not waste any time and get right into the bull case for Ethereum, starting with what it is and what its main use cases are. So, in simple terms, Ethereum is a relatively decentralized blockchain platform upon which apps and other types of smart contracts are built. Ether, or ETH, is the tokenized native cryptocurrency to the Ethereum blockchain, and owning ETH is kind of like owning shares in the Ethereum network. And so, by purchasing ETH, you're essentially buying into the future gains of the network, which will be paid out either in price appreciation of the Ethereum token, or through staking, or through lending, and a couple of other ways. So with that out of the way, what are the major use cases for Ethereum? Well, let's start with DeFi, which is short for decentralized finance. There's a lot of DeFi platforms out there that essentially either help users lend money or borrow money without having to go through a bank or a traditional institution. The DeFi market has grown from less than 10 billion in 2020 to over 75 billion as of the time of this recording. And why is this relevant to Ethereum? Well, because ETH is the preferred collateral of DeFi. And the thing about DeFi is that it scales faster and more efficiently than traditional finance. And as you can see from this slide here from ARK Invest's annual Big Ideas report, there's a massive discrepancy between the efficiency in terms of revenue per employee of traditional banking versus decentralized banking, or traditional exchange versus decentralized exchange, and so on and so forth. In every single case, the decentralized cryptocurrency version that's hosted on Ethereum wins. So in a sense, ETH has become internet money, a decentralized, trustless, and deflationary form of internet money. And ARK Invest, among many others, are projecting that financial services will increasingly move on-chain, i.e. onto the blockchain, and many of them will be built upon the Ethereum network. So just like how in the early 2000s, movie and news and TV and music, etc., all that moved online, now we're seeing a movement to on-chain. And Ethereum is currently winning the race to be the platform upon which most of that is built. Okay, now let's talk about smart contracts. So smart contracts are basically agreements that automatically execute once certain conditions are met. Now there's a lot of potential applications for smart contracts. For example, Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange that's built upon the Ethereum blockchain, uses smart contracts to ensure that users are able to swap one crypto asset for another without having any centralized broker. But there's all kinds of other use cases for smart contracts, including stablecoins, for example, which use these smart contracts to make sure that the stablecoin cryptocurrency stays pegged to the US dollar by pulling real-time data on how much the US dollar is worth. And where are all these smart contracts built? You guessed it. Most of them are built on the Ethereum blockchain or on its side chains. So we're talking about Ethereum, or for example, Polygon Matic, which is a side chain of the Ethereum. It's a layer 2. Another use case for Ethereum is NFTs. And with massive platforms like OpenSea being built upon Ethereum, and with much of the NFT economy being built upon Ethereum, according to ARK Invest, ETH has become the unit of account for NFTs. So that means that when people buy and sell NFTs, they're not buying them denominated in dollars, they're buying them denominated in ETH. And whether or not you believe in NFTs or you think they're a bubble, the sector as a whole is growing at an enormous clip. It essentially started with JPEGs, but it's expanding into so much more. For example, with NFT gaming, and most major game developers are now looking at how they can incorporate NFTs into their game. Online gaming is becoming an increasingly immersive experience, and there's pay-to-play games where people can actually earn enough money by playing these games to sell these digital items and then take that money and use it to pay for their living expenses in real life. There's utility NFTs like VFriends, where owning an NFT gives you access to something in real life, like a ticket to a conference, for example. There's entire worlds or metaverses that are being created right now where NFTs can be used and transacted in and become interoperable amongst one metaverse to another. And honestly, in this sector, Ethereum has a massive moat. They're so far ahead of the competition, and there's massive demand for blockchain space on the Ethereum blockchain because of NFTs specifically, which is extremely bullish for people that actually own the Ether tokens. Okay, let's talk about Web3. Now, all of the other use cases for Ethereum that I've already mentioned essentially converge here in this idea of Web3, where we're moving from online to on-chain. As more and more decentralized apps, or dApps as Ethereum developers like to call them, are built on the Ethereum blockchain, people are going to begin to interact more and more within Web3, and it's going to propagate pretty quickly. And the rate of digital spending with cryptocurrency is going to continue to increase. Now, all of this started with the financial sector, but since it's moved into social media and art and movies and gaming and so much more. And the expansion of Web3 will likely continue until it encompasses everything, just like the internet did in the early 2000s. And as digital spending increases by orders of magnitude as a result, of course, this is extremely bullish for the Ethereum blockchain, upon which, like I've already mentioned, many of these apps will be built. Next up, let's talk about DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. Now, DAOs are essentially a loose collective or a horizontally organized group of people that makes decisions by voting on proposals. In simple terms, it's like a digital co-op business. And in order to have a vote on proposals, you usually need to own shares in the DAO, which comes in the form of tokens, cryptocurrency. A good example of a DAO is the MakerDAO, which governs the DAI cryptocurrency. And despite the fact that Elon Musk hates DAOs, a lot of them are doing some really cool things, and also a lot of them are built upon the Ethereum blockchain. So those are the main use cases here, but Ethereum is not the only blockchain that's competing for market share of each and every one of these different use cases. There are other layer 1 blockchains that have been described as Ethereum killers. For example, Solana, Avalanche, or Terra, just to name a couple. And all of those other blockchains do have some skin in the game, but let me lay out for you now the bull case for why I think Ethereum is going to be the winner, why they're going to have the most apps built on their network and also the most users. First of all, Ethereum is decentralized and trustless, which makes it inherently much more secure than some of its competitors. Now, what does this mean? Well, essentially, being trustless and decentralized is talking about the verification of blocks on the blockchain. So instead of having some centralized person writing in a ledger who's making what transactions, Ethereum's transactions are confirmed by a decentralized pool of validators all over the world that stake their ETH to help confirm these transactions and get paid small rewards in exchange for that. This is more secure than other chains, for example Binance, because no single individual actor can have outsized impacts on actually deciding what goes into the blockchain ledger. Since it's open and trustless, it's secure, although there are trade-offs which come in the form of slower transactions potentially and higher gas fees. But as I'll get into in a couple of minutes, Ethereum 2.0 is actually going to solve a lot of those issues. In the end though, the reason why this is a bullish indicator and why it's so important for Ethereum is that once a blockchain is up and running, it's very hard to move from a centralized format of control to a decentralized format of control. It's easier down the road to scale up transaction speed, for example, than it is to reverse engineer and turn a centralized blockchain into a decentralized one. Anyways, let's talk about the next reason why I think Ethereum is going to win the layer 1 race, and that is their developer community. It's the most robust, it has the most people actively building on it, and I think the moat that they have there is going to win the day. With the multitude of use cases that I've already mentioned, there's just a massive developer community for Ethereum. Over 250,000 developers that have created over 1,000 apps already. And with the advantage of scale that they have, combined with the fact that it's the most decentralized network for people to build upon, essentially it's become the most desirable network to build upon because it's the most secure. And security is very important, especially when we're talking about something like central banks and stable coins and things like that. People with big money at stake are just not that likely to take a huge risk and go with an alternative blockchain whose development is years behind Ethereum. I think the guys over at the Bankless podcast, great podcast by the way, but the Bankless podcast guys put it really well when they describe Ethereum as a city. And if Ethereum was a city, it would be like New York. It's slightly more expensive to be there and to transact there, but it's just the place to be. Also, in addition to all the venture capitalists and private firms and DAOs that are building apps for Ethereum, if you want to see what the actual Ethereum developers themselves are working on, you can go to this website here and you can see all of the open source protocols that people are developing. Now, if you're not coming from a technical background, You probably won't understand much of what's going on here. It's going to seem like a foreign language, but if you do, it's all open for everybody to see. I will say though that if you don't come from a technical background, Vitalik Buterin's website, who's the founder of Ethereum, is probably better to check out because he actually does a pretty good job of writing in plain language that normal everyday people can understand. Okay, so I've talked about why Ethereum is more secure and why they have a huge moat in terms of the number of developers and apps on the network. But now let's talk about the future and how they can address some of the trade-offs that come with being decentralized, namely the fact that there's pretty high gas fees and that transactions aren't as fast as they could be. Well, all of those issues are going to go away with something called ETH 2.0, which is essentially the next step in Ethereum, where they're moving from proof of work and a mining system similar to what Bitcoin has had to a proof of stake system, where I talked about people stake their ETH tokens to help validate transactions on the blockchain and then get rewards for doing that. Well, that official move has already started a little bit and it's going to be fully implemented soon, sometime in the next couple of months. And the first part of that is called the merge, where it moves from proof of work to proof of stake. And there's going to be a number of significant benefits that helps Ethereum scale. For example, currently Ethereum is doing about 5.65, let's say 6 transactions per second, although its historical high has been 100 transactions per second. Well, according to Vitalik, after the merge, this could increase to tens of thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, which would far exceed what any traditional service provider like Visa, for example, can do. Now, I think it's important to mention here that the merge and Ethereum 2.0 is not going to decrease the gas fees or the transaction fees for the Ethereum network. However, Vitalik and the Ethereum team is essentially saying that most transactions on a consumer level will be conducted at the layer 2. So what that means is essentially you would keep your crypto assets on the Polygon blockchain and any transactions there would eventually be settled onto the Ethereum blockchain, so would have the security of Ethereum but would be significantly cheaper because they're not actually occurring at that base layer. ETH 2.0 is also projected to increase the overall security of the network because it's going to increase decentralization by lowering the barrier to entry. So previously, if you wanted to mine Ethereum, there was a pretty significant technological barrier there. You would have to go out and actually purchase the equipment, you'd have to know how to set it up, you'd have to know what to do. Now, anybody with any amount of ETH will be able to stake it. If you have 32 ETH, you can run your own node, and if you have less than that, you can stake it through some staking service. And with more potential validators, the entire network is more secure because it's harder and harder for bad actors to overcome that network effect. Another major benefit that's going to come with ETH 2.0 and the merge is an increase in the sustainability of the network because we're getting rid of mining and we're moving fully to the staking system. If we look at the Ethereum Energy Consumption Index, you can see that energy consumption has been going through the roof. And this is one of the main criticisms of Ethereum and of cryptocurrency in general of people that are opposed to it. But we're going to see that, this graph has already started to plateau a little bit. It's going to drop off super steeply as soon as the merge is complete because all of those Ethereum mining rigs are going to go offline and they're not going to be relevant anymore. Now, ETH 2.0 isn't going to happen all at once, and the merge is actually only the first step. And if we go to Vitalik's Twitter, you can see that he tweeted out this infographic laying out the entire process of how it's going to happen. Now, it's a little bit too technical and complex to get into here, but essentially after the merge, there's going to be an increase in scalability with something called quadratic sharding that's going to increase those transactions per second to a ridiculous level. And then over the next 5 to 10 years after that, we're going to see continued improvements in the scalability of the network, the security of the network, through all of these things that they're working on here. Okay, I've got a couple more points here before I start talking about the numbers and some projections that people have made for what Ethereum could be worth by 2030 and beyond. The next reason to be super bullish on the future of Ethereum is the fact that it's already starting to become deflationary, and after the merge and the ETH 2.0 transition, it's going to become much more deflationary. And the reason for that is that the amount of rewards that's going to be paid out to staking validators is much less than what's currently been paid out to ETH miners to validate transactions. So this website here actually simulates what would happen after the merge. And you can see right now that there's about a 1.8% increase in the supply of Ethereum, but post-merge, it's going to decrease to 2.3% deflationary because the issuance rate is going from 5.4 million per year to 500,000 ETH per year. And that's going to make a huge difference. The reason why this is so bullish is because the decrease in supply is going to be combined with an increase in demand for Ethereum blockchain space because of all the other factors that I've just mentioned, and that is probably likely going to drive the price up. We also have to talk briefly about layer 2 rollups because I've already alluded to this, but this is really where the gas fees or the transaction costs for people that are using the Ethereum network are going to go way down. The reason why it's currently so expensive to do transactions with the Ethereum blockchain is because there's so much competition for limited blockchain space and everything is happening on the Ethereum blockchain, computation, storage, and data, versus with layer 2 rollups, for example, using a sidechain like Polygon Matic, the computation and storage go with Polygon, whereas the data of the actual transactions is still recorded to Ethereum. But that split allows transactions to occur much more cheaply than if everything happened on the Ethereum network. Vitalik published his rollup-centric roadmap a while back, and this seems like it's going to be the future of Ethereum, and this is why things are going to become cheaper and more scalable. Okay, let's talk numbers now. As of the time of this recording, ETH is worth slightly less than $2,800 per token, and it's down from its recent high by over 40%. Another interesting metric to check out is the ETH to Bitcoin chart, which tracks the price of ETH relative to Bitcoin and also whether or not the flippening is actually going to happen. Now, right now we're looking at the 5-year chart, but if we zoom into the 1-year chart, you can see that recently Ethereum has been making some pretty steady gains on Bitcoin, or at least it did at the middle of 2021 and has since stayed relatively consistent. The website etherscan.io also has a lot of interesting charts and data that you can check out. For example, the daily transactions chart, where you can see that the transactions per day in Ethereum has been increasing at a rapid clip since 2017. And this is just showing the increasing demand for the network. This is another cool metric that's showing the crazy growth of Ethereum. Since 2017 to today, this is tracking the unique number of Ethereum addresses, and it's just going through the roof. And in fact, an article recently came out saying that in 2021, there was 1.53 million new Ethereum addresses added each and every month. And these are Ethereum addresses with a balance greater than 0. So these are real people, real users. So the use cases are practically limitless. Ethereum has a massive moat over all of its potential competitors. It's the most secure and the most desirable platform for developers to build upon. And when we look at metrics for the growth of the network, everything is going straight up. And all of that combined with the looming Ethereum 2.0 merge is why I'm super bullish on the future of this asset. But what does all of this mean for the future? Now, this is where some assumptions and some guesswork has to be done. First of all, Ryan Ellis, who's an investor and has been on the Bankless podcast, has suggested that according to the cash flows of Ethereum, when we look at the fees for transactions versus how much is being burned, that technically Ethereum could today be worth around or even more than $10,000 per ETH. And that is obviously a super bullish projection. If you want an even crazier and more bullish projection, then look no further than Cathie Wood and ARK Invest, because according to them, by 2030, the market cap for Ether could be around $20 trillion. And if that was the case, then we'd be looking at a price per ETH of over 100,000 US dollars. Now, whether or not you believe any of that is up to you. You can check out the sources yourself, do your own research, and crunch the numbers yourself. I, for one, am pretty confident that Ethereum has a bright future, but I don't know if I would go so far as to expect that it's going to be worth more than $100,000 per ETH at some point in the future. In the end though, by buying or staking ETH, you're investing in the future of the Ethereum blockchain and the adoption of its network by more and more developers. I'm certainly doing so, and I plan on continuing to build up my position in Ether over the next year or so. There might be some volatility and price swings in the short term, but that's to be expected. And when you're investing in cryptocurrency or in any other asset for that matter, it's been proven time and again that the best strategy is to just buy and hold, as opposed to trying to time the market. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful or entertaining. If you did, you might also like this one or this one. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.